We can go ahead and get started here. Hello and welcome to the Bridging Research and Practice Conference. I'm Kathleen and I'm with Share. This session is Peer Employment Learning Center, an innovative approach to peer workforce development. And we have Scott Palluck. Scott serves as the Director of Operations Process Analysis for Crestwood Behavioral Health. Patricia Blum is Executive Vice President with executive oversight of all Crestwood facilities. Chris Martin serves as the Director of Learning and Performance for Crestwood Behavioral Health. We have Lori Ashcraft. Lori developed numerous curricula designed to help individuals with psychiatric experiences move beyond recovery and build resilience. And then we have Rita Cronise. Rita holds a faculty position at Rutgers University, is an instructional designer with lived experience of a major mental health diagnosis. So, I ask if everyone could just mind your mute button. If anybody becomes unmuted, I can just mute you as well, but just be aware of that, please. And there'll be time for questions at the end. Also, if you could just put your email address in as we go, and we're going to send you an evaluation that we encourage you to fill out afterwards. So I'll let you all take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so hopefully everybody can see that. We are super excited to be here with you today and glad that you're joining us. Before we go any further, we'd like to start with introductions of the team so you know who we are. And we will start with Patty.
Hi, I'm Patty Blum with Crestwood, and introduction. I am a personal lived experience, a family member. I've been working in the field for 43 years, and feel very passionate every day about what I do. Thank you.
And I'm Scott Palluck. I'm the Director of Operations Process Analysis for Crestwood Behavioral Health. And part of a unique division of Crestwood called Crestwood Recovery Resilient Solutions. And very excited to be with you today and hope you enjoy our presentation.
I'm Lori Ashcraft. I'm also really happy to be with you today. We've been doing some really creative things at Crestwood, and we're really excited to share them with you.
My name is Chris Martin, and I'm a person with lived recovery experience and also a family member, and very excited to be with you folks today.
And I'm Rita Cronise, and I'm pretty grumpy about being I'm very happy to be here, and I've been working with the team since 2019 when they kind of tackled me in San Diego while we were at a National Association of Peer Specialists conference, and they pulled me in and said, we'd like you to do program evaluation. So here I am.
And it's been a harmonious relationship ever since, right, Rita?
Yeah.
Of course. So I think it's always helpful up front to kind of share with what we hope you're going to be able to walk away with today. So our learning objectives for today include identifying the key components of the Peer Employment Learning Center and how they are operationalized. We would like you to be able to become familiar with not only the structure of this pilot project, but also to provide you with how we successfully were able to put the project in motion. We'd also like to describe how the Peer Employment Learning Center can positively impact organizational recovery, resilience, and wellness outcomes. As with any pilot project, I think it's important to support organizational outcomes. So today, we're going to look at how this pilot and the use of peer support can have a profound impact on an organization's outcomes. And third, to recognize the essential elements of an effective and comprehensive program evaluation, and even beyond that, And as Rita has said, this is a very important part that Rita and Rutgers University plays, being our collaborative partner in this pilot project, not only to support the program evaluation, but also to guide us to potential research opportunities as well. And so make sure you stay on board, because Rita, a little bit later in the presentation, is going to share with you how the program evaluation for this project was actually constructed. So make sure you stay on for that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to Patty.
Thank you, Scott. It's interesting. We are, as an organization, getting ready for a milestone, which is being celebrated tomorrow. And as such, I was on in a meeting today with the president of our company, who's the keynote speaker, and very proud of this. And he said, what exactly did we measure? What are we looking at? What are our goals? Are we comparing this project against other organizations? And it gave me a great opportunity in many ways to prepare for this presentation, in that I went back and I looked. And truly, the Peer Employment Learning Center as a project came out of a few-day meeting, really over a weekend, with the Resilience, with Lori and Dean Johnson and Scott Palluck and Chris Martin and Crestwood coming together and saying, what can we do that will move the needle? What can we do that's different from what we've done before, and that could really make some dramatic changes? Because what we know about organizations that support recovery is the people in recovery can grow and change, but that organization has to grow and change as well. And sometimes, speaking as hopefully not a dinosaur, but a person with 40-some years under her belt, and an organization that's over 50 years old, sometimes that's hard to do. And so I think if I were to really say what this objective of this Peer Employment Learning Center, it's to really move the needle as an organization in recovery. And that means the people we serve truly have to shift and change, but it also means the organization has to change. And that took some deep looking at, I'll say that unequivocally. And that is where we went to Rutgers. And I think we didn't just wrestle Rita, we actually kidnapped her, put her in a van, brought her to one of our campuses. And we said, we want to do a deep dive, a real search, an honest look. And we want to get our baseline data, and then we want to see if this possibly could help us change the moving. So what we did is we developed some things that were very clear that we knew we could do, which is our peer employment, peer support specialist training. We knew we could do recovery training for leaders. We knew we could do recovery training for the organization, but we wanted to see if you put it, and then we said, how about an internship where people who are in services who receive the training can go into another program right next door and provide services. And what would all of this look like, and will it really work? And so what we did is we went about starting this process, and we started it in 2019. And from that point on, again, having that question asked for the president of the company today, I went back and it was in February of 2019 when we started to do some of the initial baseline data with Chris Martin, spending a great deal of time. I think in 7 days, he spent on all 3 different shifts, 24/7 at that campus, really learning and seeing what they did. And the goal of this is to see if by having peer support specialists, not just in the workplace, but have a workplace that's ready to support and grow peer support, if that can truly allow for not just the person served, not just the employees, but the entire organization to really be immersed in recovery, self-determination, and resilience. So our goals were to have a competency-based training, which for us is That 80-hour, it's a peer support specialist training program, but it's more than that. The competency-based training really meant identifying where people's gaps are, working on those areas, doing the training, passing assessments, and passing regular old tests, plus having paid internship that could lead people to truly being employed as peer support specialists if that is their choice. That was our first goal. Our second goal was to create a greater sense of empowerment. We have 4 pillars in Crestwood, which I think I talk about in the next slide, but the 4 pillars are empowerment, meaningful roles, hope, and spirituality. And we believe that by providing the services, by giving people more meaning and purpose in their life and having an opportunity for people not just to support each other and support recovery in others, but in themselves, and to recognize what the gift of the painful points in our lives, what gifts we give back, and to have an opportunity to have that be paid and have an opportunity to really participate in seeing the outcome of something like this. So our second goal was really to both working with the people we serve, working with our employees, working with interns, was to create the path for organization and individual recovery, resilience, and wellness outcomes. Not a lofty goal, as you can see. Our third was to recognize the efforts to increase the skills to achieve the recovery culture transformation. And that's where the rigor really comes, from my perspective, the rigor really comes in. And the thing that's most unique about this is it's an opportunity to look at a culture that needs growth and needs changing and needs evaluation, and to identify where we can change it and what tools we need to do so. So they were our goals of our Peer Employment Learning Center program. As an organization, Crestwood's been around 52 years, and the vision within Crestwood has been truly to create a continuum of services that provide supports for people to live independently and successfully in the community, by the place and way that they wish to live. And way back when, 1999, 2000, Crestwood had a recovery task force. We actually, I think, learned from the county of Contra Costa, and were supported, honestly, by some very strong peer leaders from that county. And we created a recovery task force where we identified what were the pillars of recovery. As an organization, we have values that speak very much to compassion, and that speak to a sense of character and integrity and communication and flexibility. But what are the pillars of recovery that are specific to recovery? And what we did is we went to the people we serve, and we went to people who have received services in the past, and we also included our employees, the people who provide direct services. And we found that hope, providing a sense of hope, empowering people, particularly in programs, in Crestwood programs, is very important. Providing a meaningful role, and spirituality, an opportunity for a person to have a path to allow each one of us to experience and explore our spiritual path, which is part, and we believe is integral to our recovery. So it was built on these pillars, and that vision is where the Peer Employment Learning Center really kind of was grounded. And then it was grounded in the experience that our partners, Lori and Jean and Chris and Scott, brought to us. So we looked at what are the things that we're really trying to do, and how might we put them in a way that we understand and we want to grow. And what we really found is we found that we had a lot of P's. So we had those pillars that I just spoke about, but we also had the pillars of preparation. And when we start with preparation as one of our P's, preparation is foundational in the success of people, particularly in employment. And the preparation for the person being employed, in many ways, what we found through our Dream Catchers employment program is the preparation of the location where they will be employed. So that took a lot. We put a lot of time and attention into preparing the environment for people to come in as peer supporters, to come in and work in that environment. Lots of training, lots of support, and also absolutely recognizing that this is consistent with the values and pillars that have been in place for over 2 decades. We looked at partnerships, being partners with persons served, being partners with employers, being partners with Rutgers, as well as being partners with other agencies where the people who we are putting through this program can be employed. So that was another big focus. Personal development for all of us was a big one. The idea of permanence, of having a place that you belong. And that is something that we hear over and over again, is that sense of belonging and that being a need. And so the opportunity that you could have a job where this, if you so desire, you have opportunities for career development as a peer support specialist and placement, that you really do have we will support you in working with Department of Rehab and working with other agencies and working independently to be placed in a place of employment where you wish to provide the services. So we had a lot of P's. I think we even have more, but those were the ones that jumped out at us.
Thank you, Patty. So I'm actually going to expand even a little bit more on some of the items that Patty has shared with you, and more perhaps in an illustrative way. You know, as Patty had said, you know, get us in a room for a few days and a lot of things can happen. So, you know, as with many innovative and unique projects that have been initiated by Crestwood, this pilot project started in that same exact similar fashion. And totally honest here, these are pictures of notes that we took on that very first day as we were just doing some brainstorming and figuring out how to make such an impact and difference. So something that's important to understand about this project is that it's not a project that we implement one time and then the project is complete. The goal here is to not only roll this out to multiple campuses within Crestwood, but also have it sustained at each campus. So the planning and the preparation that's involved is a very important part of this process. And we used a relatively simple tool, which is an action plan, which was made up of, you know, action steps, sub-action steps, expected completion dates, who's responsible for doing what task. And even though it's a relatively simple tool, it did allow us to really drill down to very minute details and ultimately support the effectiveness in carrying out the plan. In addition, you know, we had very clearly defined goals, very clear action items, sufficient resources to be able to carry out the plan, which have resulted in this successful implementation. And, you know, it's a really good thing because, you know, we have been working at this project for quite a while. As Patty had said, you know, initially rolling it out in 2019 and it becoming a concept. And by February of 2020, we were ready to go. And of course, we all know what happened. A little pandemic got in our way. But the good news is that because we had a very detailed plan, once we're able to move forward, all we needed to do was update the dates on our plan and we were ready to go. So really the preparation and the planning are critical elements to a successful pilot. So to illustrate some of what Patty had shared in regard to the basic premise of the Peer Employment Learning Center, what you see on the screen is reflective of two programs on our San Diego campus. One is Hummingbird Healing House, which is an adult residential program, and then also Crestwood San Diego MHRC, which is a mental health rehabilitation center. And for illustrative purposes, you know, in each of the programs, you are supported by staff, which are the green folks in each of the programs, and then the people that we're supporting. And so the premise here is that the people who are being supported and receiving services at the adult residential program then become interns and provide services to individuals who are receiving support in the MHRC. On the same campus, different programs. And so very simple premise of what the Peer Employment Learning Center is all about, but in a much larger scope, it really does much more than that. So let's look at some of the components of the Peer Employment Learning Center and give you a little bit more information of what they included. So as Patty had shared, there's training, and it's not just training for the people that we're serving who become interns, but it's also for staff. That really helps to support that recovery culture transformation. And so as we initiated this pilot, there was a total for staff and interns, a total of 228 hours of training. Now, of course, not everyone went through 228 hours, but that's just the total number. Staff were provided up to 128 hours of training with 6 different courses. And so depending on what your role is within the organization, that actually resulted in the number of training hours that you would participate in. And as Patty said, part of these trainings included our comprehensive peer support specialist training, supervisory training, recovery practices for organizations, mentor training, and also wellness curriculum training. And then our interns, who are the individuals who are receiving services in the adult residential program, they were provided 96 hours of training with 2 courses, and the interns participated in both courses. One was an orientation workshop, and then the other was the comprehensive peer support training. And then together, staff and interns participated in training, which was a training to really prepare everyone for the internship. Now, something important to remember that, as we've been talking about, is the PELC pilot is designed to result in providing competency-based training and a paid internship for people that we're serving that leads to employment. But as Patty had referenced, also to support the increase of skills to achieve organizationally a recovery culture transformation. And a little bit more information, as noted, our interns participated in a 3-month paid internship, and each internship was providing 7 hours of support each week to individuals at the MHRC. And the interns are also participating in ongoing support and supervision activities throughout the internship. Something that's important to note as well is all internship hours are provided by the interns in the presence of their assigned mentor. And this is important because the assigned mentor will complete various assessments of the intern's abilities during the 3 months. And then we also host a career exploration fair. One of the goals is to, hire as many of the interns internally within Crestwood as possible. And so the career exploration fair is really an opportunity for interns to explore available peer support positions within Crestwood campuses. And most recently, at the career exploration fair that was conducted, 13 interns had the opportunity to interview for positions with 3 different Crestwood campuses. And of course, all of this entire experience culminates in a spectacular graduation event where accomplishments are truly celebrated. And that first graduation from this pilot is occurring tomorrow. Now, it is, based on our current environment, it is a virtual graduation, but it's going to be a grand event either way. So the PELC pilot, it truly strengthens Crestwood as an organization and highlights the extraordinary benefits of having peers within the workforce. And to talk more about these benefits, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Lori Ashcraft.
Thank you, Scott. I'm not sure I know how to move the slides. Oh, maybe I don't need to know.
Just tell me when, and I will change the slide.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. It's just a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm just listening to us up to this point, and I'm just wondering if you're getting one of the more significant aspects of what we're doing here. So let me just back up a minute and tell you that this is a locked program, and 90% of the people in it are on conservatorship. Now, why in the world would we think we could pull out peers from there, train them, and put them back to work in this locked setting? Well, because we've done it before. And because we have this amazing belief in people that they can recover. And we don't get distracted by their history, by their diagnosis, or by how they present. We simply focus on their strengths, give them opportunities, and stand behind them. And that's what we've done through this process. And we have not been disappointed. We have been impressed, inspired, and excited by the results we've experienced from people. And they're pretty excited and inspired themselves. So it's been a wheel going around. And kudos to Patty, our fearless leader, to believe in us enough to take this leap and invest in the time and effort and finances it's taken to roll this together. So anyway, I'm sorry, I just couldn't help but say that just in case, just in case you missed it up to that point. So as folks have said up to this point, peer support makes a positive impact on the organization. Patty used the word move the needle in the beginning. How can we move the needle here? It can't be little. It can't be some little diddly twitsy thing like changing the soap in the soap dish or something, or training 3 people in recovery. It's got to be big if we're going to move the needle. So that's why we went big here. And this is just the first pilot site. There's 4 more sites lined up for this experience. And we know we're going to have better recovery and resilient outcomes and wellness outcomes because we're going to increase the number of peers on the team. Okay, Scott, ready to turn. So here's our recovery principles to support the culture shift we were hoping to do, and which is actually happening at an amazing rate. So we're focusing on, and you folks know all this because it looks to me like a lot of you have had a firsthand peer experience like we have had. So we focus on what's strong instead of what's wrong. Again, as I said earlier, we don't get distracted by what's wrong. We stay focused on potential. We view the whole person, not just their diagnosis or their history. We want to know what their abilities are. We want to know what they've accomplished. And we want to know what their challenges are. So we want to look at the whole package. And then when we look at that package, we want to see the problems or the challenges through the lens of potential. So as we're looking at those areas that are wobbly, we see them through the lens of potential. So we might say, you know, yep, you had a bad day. You weren't really yourself today, but I see the potential there for you to pull out of this and have a much better outcome. That's just an example of looking at challenges through the lens of potential. We stay focused on the person, not the problem. You know how often any of us walk into a doctor's office, or some of us still see a therapist or go to a clinic. And the first thing they want to know is what's wrong? What's your problem? Why are you here? We don't focus that way. We look at the person and pull that person forward in the way we relate to them. We aim for solutions instead of bogging down in problems. People don't come to us because they want us to tell them about their problems. They want a solution. So why spend all that time with the problem when we could go to the solution? So that's kind of the focus we've had as we've looked for a culture shift. Okay, Scott, ready to go. Again, something we focus on and pull forward in our training, and also in the training we've done with staff. I think you've heard people say so far that we didn't just train peers, because we've all had that experience of training peers, putting them to work someplace that wasn't a peer-friendly environment and having it not work, and then the peer getting blamed for it. So we trained everybody. We even trained the kitchen folks. And in that training, these things show up for everybody. sharing personal recovery experiences. If you can do it, I can do it. Role modeling. Peers are expert in creating a recovery lifestyle and also a guide to the wider world outside the formal system. Where can I get, where's a good thrift shop? Where do they have the best hamburgers or whatever you're eating these days? Engagement. Peers are so good at connecting with people. And it comes from that stance of mutuality and mutual respect. It's not hierarchical, it's being with, it's bearing witness. So that's what we look for from our peer staff. And that's what they're contributing to our work right now. Okay. Here's the organizational outcomes that we were shooting for when we put this together. And they're all pretty much showing up. Not to the degree that we're going to settle for, but they're definitely showing up and they're right on course. The peer specialist's own recovery is strengthened through service. What we see is as the peer goes through the training, they get stronger and stronger. They go through the internship and they get paid, they even get stronger because now they start to have some confidence that they can do this. Then they go to work and start making a difference and they get a lot better even yet. And then the folks they work with get better because we've got that nice mutuality going on. And the organization and system recover. As staff work alongside people in recovery, staff get more hopeful. Because if you think about it, staff often don't see people who've recovered. They only see the people in front of them, the people that have come back because they couldn't make it. They don't see all the people that get healed and get alive. So having peers work alongside staff really brings that front and center for them. It confronts system and professional stigma because we know professionals have a stronger sense of stigma delivery than the general population. So if a peer is working right in there with them, it's a little hard to pull that off. And then folks move from the position of being a mental patient to being a colleague. It redefines roles and boundaries. And I'm sure you know this, but it's not comfortable. This is a lot of uncomfortable stuff. Even when you've trained everybody, when the day comes that peers show up on the job and they're not in their mental patient role and the staff isn't in the treatment role anymore with them, it's like whiplash. And it's a place where we need to pay a lot of attention and kind of midwife through that experience. But we're ready for that. We understand it. And actually, I'm looking forward to it. So thank you. I think we're going to move on to Rita now, right, Scott?
Thanks, Lori. It's me. Thanks, Lori.
It's Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi. So we're all really, as you heard from Patty, Scott, and Lori, we are all about shifting the status quo to those other two R's, which are recovery and resilience. And what we have here, what you kind of might think of them as 4 phases. Sometimes they can happen simultaneously, but there's kind of an order. And the first step is resolving. We're going to talk about each one in a moment. Then reducing comes up for a very clear reason. And then what we call resonating, and finally radiating. So let's take a closer look at these 4 phases. So the first thing is resolving, and that's coming up with a resolution and making our resolution big enough. By the way, I want to start out by saying we all 5 of us really honor and welcome all of you folks on today. We know that all of you do very innovative and sacred work, and we honor that. We believe that every encounter that we have with the person we serve is sacred, and we really honor. And it's so good to see all of you here, and especially the great champion of recovery, Sally Zinman. So this first phase is called resolving, coming up with a resolution and making our vision big enough. Oftentimes, and I'm speaking from my own experience as a peer, sometimes we settle and we don't make our vision big enough. And so this is true at the individual level, the peer level. It's also true at the organizational level. It's like taking on a lens of what we can be and what we can do. And so there's a lot of work into preparing ourselves with this resolution. So after this resolving takes place, when we make our vision, we get very grounded in that, then we're going to face some reducing. And the reason why is what often comes up, as you know, when we start any big venture in our life, and really it takes some courage, sure enough, and if you click on the screen there, Scott, what often happens is we start to experience fear. Fear, by the way, is often related to the past and to the future, right? So for those of us, and I can speak for myself, and I also speak for peers in the class, there can be fears related to past experiences in school, right? Can I make it? Am I going to have the experience I had? And what about the anxiety that comes with tests? And I don't think I can do it, right? For the staff, it's what? You're going to bring people who are being served into the field? What about my job? What am I going to be doing? How am I going to be valued, right? And also, there's this perspective of failure. What if I fail the class? So there comes this need to reduce those fears and doubts. The second one that comes up is doubts of recovery in ourselves. And specifically, that's when we start to, once again, doubt that we can make it. We can sit through an 80-hour class. We can do an exam, and just doubt that we can do it. Or if we're a staff member, we doubt that we can actually work with a colleague who's a peer support specialist who previously received services. So it's about reducing all of those doubts. The third one that comes up is when we start to doubt recovery in others. In the peer support class we did recently, and Lori and I have experienced this, by the way, all over the world in peer support training, working with organizations. There were a number of loving staff members who came out right out and said to me, we're really concerned that these people won't be able to make it through the class. They won't be able to pay attention in a college level class, 80 hours, and do the tests, and let alone do the internship, right? So it's also about reducing doubts in ourselves about other people's strengths and potential, right? And being able to see them in a new light. And then finally, there's this reducing that is related to amnesia. And that's just simply remembering the brilliance of our resilience. Looking back in the past and seeing when we were able to get through bumps and challenges in the past, and we came through those with flying colors and even stronger. So remembering our resilience can also help us do a lot of this reducing fears and doubts. The next step, kind of related to reducing, it's a kind of like a side step. And if you go to the next slide, Scott, reframing has to occur almost simultaneously. I love what Wayne Dyer said. He said, when we start to change the way we look at things, the things we look at start to change. And that relates, quite frankly, to the status quo, right? The next slide. And it can also relate to ourselves. So again, having a perspective of recovery, strengths, and potential, right? In ourselves and others. Okay. So we like to say that part of this reframing process is where we say recovery is the expectation, not the exception. I like to say taking off the lens of nope and putting on the lens of hope, right? And that's this reframing that we do individually and as an organization. Patty talked a lot about how organizations can recover. Did you know also that systems recover? Well, actually, I'm speaking to the choir. You guys know that, right? Okay, the next slide. So once we did the reducing and reframing, and then we started to see some resonating happening in the classroom, this 80-hour class. So click on the first one there, Clyde, Scott. So all of the students went through an 80-hour, 2-week course where they actually applied the skills in the classroom. And as you probably are aware with peer support classes, it's head work and also heart work, okay? The next part of it, this resonating also showed up when they started to share their recovery story. in the first week of the class. You know, for some, they never had done that before. And also in front of people they didn't even know that well. And then after the first week, they took a comprehensive up to that point, midterm exam individually, and they brought that back the following Monday for a graded score. And then they were also evaluated in class for facilitating a wellness course in the class. They were evaluated for preparing that lesson plan and also facilitating it. And then toward the end of the second week, they actually had to demonstrate something we call the peer support interaction in a live role play demonstration in front of the whole class and get evaluated as part of their final exam score for the oral part of the final exam. And finally, on the last day, they did a closed book comprehensive final exam. And I'm so happy to say that all 18 of the folks passed with flying colors, right? So things were resonating in the mind and the heart. And then finally, the last phase that we recognize in this process is radiating. And that was during the internship. I love what Viktor Frankl says. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by a lack of meaning and purpose. Think about what we've been talking here. So people come to receive services in a locked psychiatric setting, behavioral health setting, right? They come to receive services, lo and behold, they get trained and they're going to be discharged with the credential to do professional work in California as peer support specialist or just about any state in the United States. This is an amazing kind of shifting, right, of the status quo inside of ourselves. And so also with this radiating, next slide. We wanted to share with you, first of all, these are some pictures of one of the peer support classes. I wanted to say during the internship, a lot of amazing things happened. Let me just give you a real quick story. One of the folks who was receiving services was working with one of the peer support interns. And he said to that intern, you know, working with you, listening to you, makes me believe that recovery is possible. This is just one of the amazing things that happened during the internship. Here you can see some photographs of the leaders and the leaders and supervisors of the peer support specialists and the interns who were in the program. These leaders in Crestwood, by the way, this is true on a larger scale for Crestwood. All of the leaders in this class either had a lived recovery experience themselves or were family members. So they went through the peer support class first, so they would know how to support the interns and the peer support specialists when they come into working in their new job. We want to share with you a little video testimonial, 4 minutes, about what they experienced going through the peer support class. Scott?
The peer support class has been so blessing for me because even that is a training, a class where I can learn a lot of things in the way that I can be a peer support. It's helping a lot of my growing, a lot of my skills that I'm discovering right now in the class. So it is kind of a training, but it's helping me in growing in a lot of personal things about me.
I think it's absolutely amazing. It's really exciting to get to know people that I work with every day on a different level. There's not anybody that's over anybody else. And we're just all learning from each other. It's just fully accepting of one another. My favorite aspect of it, I think, is that with every other training that we do, there's like a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And with this, I'm kind of the expert on myself. And so my questions and my answers are my truth, and that's okay. And that's the same thing for everybody, which is why I think it's so beneficial.
So this peer support pilot program that I'm attending, it means a lot to me, being as though that I have had loved ones dealing with substance abuse and mental health disorders at a very young age. I wish I would have had this course then to be able to support them in their sobriety and help them along their journey. I'm glad that this course is now so that we can continue to help individuals struggling with their addictions and being able to move forward in their journeys in life, to live their life worth living.
think the class is amazing. I think we should integrate it into all of our programs here at Crestwood, at our company. For leaders, you know, for staff development. It's important, right, to humanize our person served. Otherwise, then we treat them lesser than, right? And no one wants to be treated lesser than. We all want to feel like we matter and that we can make a difference in the world. And the peer support learning training has been able to show me how I could incorporate the humanness into the people that we serve, incorporating that perspective, right? Being able to see that they're doing their best, right? And see that they're doing their best, and we shouldn't take that away from them, you know? We can't rob their power, we gotta empower.
I think the class is really amazing. It has exceeded my expectations thus far. It really confirms what I've been able to bring forth in my role. And it feels really comfortable. I love being able to connect to knowledge that I have been seeking for my own personal development and, you know, my own recovery, but also seeing it in a new way and seeing how it's flourishing and becoming more accepted in using it in this area in mental health and working with others and helping others. It's really great to also revisit these principles and learn about them in new ways with other people. I feel like I'm sitting in a room with my soul tribe and it's really neat to be here.
So we're moving from the status quo to the status of let's go. And so now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Rita.
Thank you, Chris. And I'll get back to the beginning when I said I'm grumpy. I have to follow Chris. That's why I'm grumpy. Chris is just amazing. Sorry, did I get muted? Hello, am I unmuted? Okay, so I was just saying the reason I'm grumpy is because I have to follow Chris because he's one of the most amazing trainers and very poetic. He's the most poetic person I know. So I'm Rita Cronise and I am with Rutgers University. And as I mentioned in the early, I love that Patty said they kidnapped me. I went willingly. I honestly did. When I found out about this program, I was very excited and I was brought in to do a program evaluation. Go ahead, Scott. So just going to talk very briefly about the program evaluation, the survey tools that we're using, and some of the research opportunities that we've got coming ahead. Go ahead. So for those of you that may not be familiar with a program evaluation, there's research and then there's program evaluation. And a program evaluation has a slightly different focus, but it can get around to the research eventually. So I'm working specifically on a program evaluation of the PELC. And what a program evaluation is a systematic collection of information about the activities, characteristics, and outcomes of a program to make judgments about the program, improve the program effectiveness, and inform decisions about future program development. Next slide. This is just sort of a wheel of what it looks like when you're starting the process of doing a program evaluation. And so we're engaging the stakeholders, describing the program, focusing on the evaluation design, gathering credible evidence. And that's the hardest part in a program like this is gathering that credible evidence. And I think we've got a good plan for doing that. And then justifying the conclusions that come from that. And then making sure that we're sharing that information widely. And the standards are all about utility, feasibility, propriety, and accuracy. Go ahead, Scott. So why would we do a program evaluation? We've got a couple of questions that we're trying to answer with the evaluation that we're currently doing. The implementation, were the program's activities put in place as they were originally intended? I could say so far, my observation is absolutely. Effectiveness, is your program achieving the goals and objectives it was intended to accomplish? In many cases, yes, but we've got some more things that we're looking at to make sure that's true. Efficiency, are your program activities being produced with appropriate use of resources such as budget and staff time? There's a lot invested in this program, but we think it's going to pay off really big. So next slide. Why else do a program evaluation? Cost effectiveness is a big one. And because this program is going to be replicated across all of the campuses and with our hope across the entire country at some point, we want to make sure that the values or benefits of achieving the program goals and objectives exceed the cost of actually producing them. So that's something we're going to be looking at very closely as we move forward, and ways of making sure that it is cost effective to achieve the kinds of outcomes we're looking at. And the attribution, can we honestly say that progress on the goals and objectives can be shown to be related to the program as opposed to other things that were happening and going on at the time? And we actually have a pretty big complicating factor that got dropped into the middle of this program, and that's COVID. So there's a lot of things that happened with COVID. There's a lot of things that we did during the time of COVID that while we couldn't do the peer training, we were doing other things that were going to enhance the effectiveness and the ability for recovery to be available throughout the organization. And I don't really have a lot of time to talk about that, but we've been working on some pretty cool things. Next slide. So again, why do a program evaluation? A thorough program evaluation contributes that evidence towards what can be determined at some point in the future as an evidence-based practice. So it's a first step towards looking at, do we have enough evidence to say that this is an evidence-based practice? Next slide. So who participated in the program? You saw a slide earlier where the organizational leaders were going through the peer learning training. So the organizational leaders participated. The supervisors, and they participated in things like a supervisor workshop and something called a resilient culture playbook, which I hope Chris will have a chance to talk about because it's an amazing tool. Mentors, mentor orientation, and what they were mentoring was the wellness curriculum that they were having the interns actually facilitate. Providers and staff were going through recovery for organizations, which was a training for everybody that went through that. The peers were being taught to be peer specialists as part of the peer learning. And then we also engaged family members as part of this. So family members were included in this whole evaluation process. Next slide. So one of the tools, the main tools that we were using for the program evaluation was actually out of Yale. Now I'm with Rutgers, but we went to Yale because they had some expertise in measuring recovery across organizations. And we're using a tool called the Recovery Self-Assessment, which is a series of 36 items that everybody throughout the entire organization took this as a baseline to see where they were at in their understanding of recovery-oriented practices. So we're doing this in a phased approach. So everybody in the organization took this and another part that we'll talk about in a minute. And there were versions for administrators, the providers, the people in recovery, and then family members. That particular tool was enhanced with something that was grown throughout, well, Chris and Crestwood created an 18-item assessment called the Recovery Culture Temperature. So they were taking the temperature of the organization and the temperature of how people perceive the organization from a recovery perspective. That was added on to the 36-item measure that Yale produced. So we use this as a pre-pilot measure across the organization. Next slide, Scott. And this is just a little bit, this is what the self-assessment looks like on paper form. We actually did this online, and we have an amazing quality assurance person named Palluck who made sure that everything got moved online and then worked with people as they took these tools online so that we were getting the actual input from people who were taking these assessments. And there's across the bottom, you'll see that there's a source, there's a link to the actual source site. And we had permission from Yale to do this. They granted us permission, graciously granted us permission to use their self-assessment. Next slide. And then this is just a little snapshot of what it looks like for the recovery temperature assessment that Crestwood came up with, that Chris and I think Lori was also involved in that too. So this was just, have you ever taken someone's temperature to determine if they're getting better. Now, how about the temperature of an entire organization or agency? And that was what this was really intended to measure. So as you read through 9 areas, you select the degree to which you feel it accurately represents the organization. So these were the degree. I think that these are brilliant. You know, getting out of the life support. So needs a total makeover. So you disagree completely that it has a recovery culture. Barely a pulse, not a strong recovery culture. So that's a disagree. Vital signs are stable, fair or average, the norm. So people that are actually doing good recovery there. And then thriving recovery culture is where everybody in the organization is really practicing a recovery culture. So it was a really good add-on to the original self-assessment that was done. Next slide. And then how was it done? We started with training for leaders and supervisors, and these are the assessments that were done by the leaders. So there was the enhanced RSA, which had the recovery temperature. There was the PSL training. They did the pre and post test as part of their learning when they went through the peer specialist training themselves. There was a 180-degree assessment that was provided by direct reports of all the leaders and supervisors. So the supervisors were getting input from all of their direct reports on how they were doing. A self-assessment by the leaders and supervisors themselves. And then there was also the recovery skills interaction rubric, which Chris talked about a little bit earlier. And that was just to really make sure that they were understanding what they had learned in the training and were able to put it into practice. General classroom workshop evaluations. And again, the enhanced RSA was given to everybody after the internship was done so that we could see before any of the training started, a couple of assessments we're doing during the training and then after. And tomorrow is the graduation. So our next phase of doing that self-assessment by the entire organization is going to start soon after that. And then we'll be looking at the data. Next up, or next slide. And then the training for peer specialists went through pretty much the same kinds of assessments. There was an internship 180-degree assessment with additional things. One thing called a recovery coaching wheel, which is a really good tool for understanding where you're at and what you really need to improve upon. That there's both the strengths and the areas of opportunity for improvement that the mentors were working with the interns on. And then of course, all of the different, the classroom tests and observations. The trainer gave a direct observation of what was happening in the classroom. And then during the classroom, they were paired up giving evaluations of each other. So there's a lot of evaluation feedback that we're going to be looking at the peer specialists themselves. Next slide. And so what's next? We'll be doing that data analysis to review the implementation, effectiveness, efficiency, cost effectiveness, and the attribution of the changes as relevant to the PELC program. And I wanted to go back to, Patty mentioned at the very beginning about moving the needle. It's so important to do this kind of data gathering and data analysis and really looking at, is this program what's instrumental in making the change? And I think we're going to have really good data when we get done with that. And I also wanted to mention, I was overhearing one of the other earlier sessions, one of the people was mentioning that they were really disappointed that there had not been a culture shift within the organizations, that organizations were just not prepared for peers to come in. And this seemed to be kind of an observation of the statewide in California, the state of the state, that organizations are just not ready for peers to be embedded within their organizations. Well, having a program like this can be a real game changer. Next slide, Chris. And then these are just sort of the references that I mentioned, but I also wanted to give a little bit of a surprise to the team, because I have done kind of a program not a program evaluation, a team evaluation. And here's my evaluation of Patty. She is one of the most inspirational leaders I've ever met anywhere, hands down. So I would give her an A for inspirational leadership. Scott, he is one of the most amazing project managers and program managers I have ever seen. He is just so attentive to detail while also keeping the big picture in mind. So I would give an A+ to Scott for project planning and program management. Chris, I give him an A++ for the heart and soul of peer support, because he just really embodies it in everything that he does. And Lori, just the spirit and soul of peer support, because she's been doing this for forever. Well, not forever, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it that old, but as sort of one of my spiritual guides and leaders, she just really is an inspiration to me, and I think to the entire generation. So that's my evaluation of our team and the team that's leading and guiding this program. Next slide.
Well, thank you, Rita. That was a surprise. If we were evaluating you, we would thank you tremendously for being part of this journey with us. And we couldn't do this without your expertise and knowledge to help support being able to clearly have data to show the movement that's being made as a result of this project. So you get a double A+. Chris, did you want to premise this video at all? No, or just play it? You're on mute.
Yeah, this is a video that Lori and I had put together. Gosh, it's been quite a few years ago, right, Lori? And this was what some employees of an organization we used to work for saw as an opportunity for all staff members to shift toward recovery, and this idea that shift happens. And so these are some things they pondered about that need to take place.
You. And we'll certainly open the floor to any questions that you might have and provide you with some answers.
I'm Merlin in California. In watching this shift happens, I sent it in the chat. I love it. Where do I get it? And I want to share it as soon as I can. Right away
Ditto.
if I can.
Chris, is that available?
I think we can look at that and probably, we have people's email addresses. We can probably do that.
And are you providing this presentation to us? I'm sorry. I really love this presentation and I'd like to refer back to it.
We could provide it to you in a PDF form.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't want to make changes. Thank you. I'll send my I'll put my email in there.
If you all are okay with us sharing it, then we can put it up on the share website as well, along with the replay.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Well, we certainly thank you for being with us today. We also want to just share with you our email addresses. If you would like to reach out us at all, you can feel free to do so. We'd be more than happy to connect with you or share whatever we can to help support you as well.
Scott, could I just add something that we have a bit of a specialty in is making little videos like this for our trainings at Crestwood and things that we do other places. And if you have a need for anything in particular, let us know, because we just might have a video you could borrow from us. We're happy to share stuff with you guys.
Thank you. That's awesome. You guys put a lot of work in it, we can tell. Thank you for this whole thing. It was good.
Thank you for being with us today.
I just want to say that in Orange County, we just started the purpose of recovery. And I know we're just the north, and I just am amazed at the amount of resources that are available to us. And our purpose is to make sure people know about that and to know about you. And thank you for this. Is great.
Thank you so much.
Yes, this is Mark from, I work for Encompass in Santa Cruz County, and I've been in peer support for about 30 years. And my motivation was to get a certification. And so I went through RI Counseling's peer certification, which is approved by the VA. And so with them, I am categorized as a certified peer support specialist. Everywhere else, I'm just a peer support specialist here in the state of California. And again, just to spend the day in all these different areas gives me an it really encourages me. And also lets me understand that there are a lot of people out there that really don't know. And so I'm grateful and thankful.
Thanks, Mark.
If there are no more questions or comments, then I guess we can wrap up. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add or ask? All right, well, thank you all so much. That was an excellent presentation, and I believe that everyone agrees. So that's pretty much it for today. At 5 p.m., there's going to be some final words and next steps. If you want to hang out in here, you're more than welcome, or you can log back in, whatever you'd like. But again, thank you all so much, and thanks for your email addresses. We'll be sending you an evaluation, and then also this as well as the other presentations will be up on the share website in a few days. So thank you all again so much.
Thank you so much.